In Amsterdam today, I'm joined by Robyn Exton, who is the CEO and founder of Her. So Robyn, when you started out, it wasn't called Her, was it?
No, it was called Datch. R.I.P. Datch. Loved it. Yeah. It was a different. It was a different product, and it was a different idea. I guess my mind frame was in a different place, and we didn't know that much about the community. It was kind of starting to create something to learn about what was the right thing for our user base.
So taking you back to, when did you first start out?
I quit my job at the end of 2012, and I think the app went live like right at the beginning of 2013.
And what was Datch?
So Datch was a dating app for lesbian and bisexual women. So you could be cisgendered female or you could be female identified, but it was really as clear cut as that. And at the time, I think my only real references, was like Grindr was the strongest thing that I was looking at, and I wanted to make something that felt relevant to a female audience, but worked as well for it as the way that Grindr did.
So how long had you been running Datch when you decided that you wanted to change things up?
We knew after about 6 months, started to realize that what we were doing wasn't working, and we started doing a few changes to like test different ideas inside of Datch. So adding new features and talking about it differently and testing different propositions. And I think after about a year and a bit, we knew it was going to be a whole change, and that it was more about the product and how we were changing the experience. And we did the name was a change that we would have done anyway, I think, because there were some functional issues around the name Datch. No one could spell it, people couldn't really say it. Everyone thought it meant something it didn't. And we knew, and the other opportunity of doing that is that a name change signifies like, this is a new thing, we're approaching this differently, it has a different feel to it, and you'll get something different out of it. So it all kind of came together, and then it took us about 6 months to do it all and build the whole new app. And then that went out in beginning of March 2015.
And so, it's quite brave, I think, to rebrand, particularly to, it's brave to rebrand anyway, you are starting from scratch. But was it a bit scary rebranding with a word that was obviously so prolific? A lot of people will be aiming for SEO and trying to get a nice catchy title that people can remember. Was it quite scary when you think how many times the word Her is used on the internet?
We tried to think through a bunch of circumstances to work it out, and I think what we came to is the actual idea of renaming, all the concerns that I had about it and what it could mean for our user base actually ended up being completely insignificant. Changing the product, that was significant, and changing what people could expect from it, that was the actual thing that was the hardest to bring people along on this journey of hey, no, we used to do this, but now we're doing this, and it's continued to throw up issues.
What was the main change? Was it that you were stepping away from dating?
Stepping away from dating, doing a lot more social stuff inside of it. We also opened up the user base. So as I said, it used to be just for female identified users, and we opened it up to all sexualities, including straight people. We opened it up for non-binary gendered people. We've opened it up to trans men, and that was a big mental shift for our user base. Of they saw it as this very female exclusive space, and that's not what Her is about. So the reason for the name Her is to acknowledge our roots, and how we will always see issues is always through the eyes of women. That will always be our lens, but the community is inclusive of gender identities and sexualities way beyond it. So that was something that we still have to work with our community. But the actual the logistics of the naming stuff wasn't that was much easier to do and didn't cause as many concerns.
And because I think if there are people watching who are thinking, I'm not 100% confident with my name or with the brand I've set up, and I want to make these changes, I think probably the things that are quite daunting are social media. I've got my accounts all set up.
Yeah.
How do I change? Was stuff like that? Was it complicated, or does it seem worse than it really is?
A lot of it's just logistics and paperwork, and so I think when you're picking a new name, you're more aware of what you need to get with it. So you logistically think through, okay, what's going to be our handle? When we were doing Datch, obviously it was a new word, we could claim everything. With Her, we had to work out we're not going to get Her because it's going to be claimed everywhere. So what is our handle going to be? How is that consistent across all platforms? And so you have different combinations of words that you test out. I think the way domains work nowadays, it's going to be so, especially with a 3-letter word, you're not going to get the domain. But even companies like Square, I think they had Square Up. They might even still be on that now. It doesn't have to be the pure name. I think what we knew was in our space, there was the movie Her, and that's had a lot of traffic. It's a word that's used all the time, but there wasn't actually a brand that owned that identity. And in the space that we are in, we could claim it pretty quickly, that it would give us that kind of stronghold that other people probably wouldn't come into the space because they don't want to be seen as a lesbian, queer, bisexual community. And anyone who is coming in, it would be too hard to compete with it.
And in that respect, have you got trademarks and things, or have you just...
We have trademarks for our logo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But not the word.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Sorry, you're not allowed to use that word anymore. That's our company name. So have you got any advice to anyone who is thinking about doing a rebrand? I mean, how long did that rebranding process take for you, kind of like coming, from the point of saying, do you know what, this isn't working, and then deciding exactly what you wanted to achieve? Was it a long process?
I think so. So the branding part of it, I think you could probably comfortably do within 2 months, maybe a little bit longer depending on the creative process. I think in terms of actual like product change, that was a 8 month to a year long almost process, but that's also because we knew a lot more, so we were testing a lot. We had to handle the migration. We completely ripped everything up and started from scratch, and so building a completely new product has like a 3 month, 6 month kind of time lead. We had to migrate all our databases, so there was a lot of logistical stuff with it. If we were just doing that and nothing else, we were still kind of maintaining Datch at the same time. I think you could probably do it in 6 months. But I think I was fundraising at the same time as well. So all yeah,
everything comes
and
at
literally,
once.
like the day her launch was the day I moved to America, and I think we'd closed our round like 3 weeks before. So it was
You don't do things
really
by halves.
intense. Yeah.
And so, just focusing on the rebrand, you got any advice for people who are thinking of rebranding?
I think don't get intimidated by it. It's not that big a deal. Think practically about what's going to work. Look into spaces that you can own, identities that you can own. Honestly, the biggest thing, and it's why we changed Datch, like just do something that like makes sense and something that people can say as a word. Like people try and get really smart and really tricksy with stupid spellings and stuff, and I get because you think you want to own the domain and own that identity, but I just don't think it's worth it. Like find something that makes sense, people understand that they're like, oh cool, yeah, I get it. Like we talk about what we do, we say it's called Her, and everyone's like, yeah, that's a good name, like makes sense. So just do something sensible.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Cool.